Okay, so for this week, we will be working on our House Divided inspired speech. And to get you started, if you haven't started already, I'd like you to consider audience and purpose. So that's what this short little lesson will be about, considering your audience and purpose as you are writing. So to start, think about this. Who is most likely the audience for the message on the right? In other words, who are you most likely writing to and how do you know? So here's the situation. You have to cancel a meeting, so you leave this message on the office door. I am sorry that I cannot make our appointment today, as I do not have a ride home from school. Can we please reschedule at your convenience? Who would you most likely be writing to? A counselor? Your friend? Your grandmother? Your older sister? Or anyone? And how do you know? I hope that you notice you would most likely be writing to your counselor because this is the most professional option out of these choices. Your friend is someone really close to you, and we typically use very informal language when we're talking to our friends. Your grandmother is someone who is older and you talk to them with respect, but not in a professional way, I wouldn't think. Your older sister, that's chances are more informal as well. And we know that this message isn't just to anyone because the note says, can we please reschedule at your convenience? This message is directed to someone. There's some kind of understanding that you know this person, a specific person. So yeah, this message would be to a counselor as an example because of the formal language. I am sorry, appointment, reschedule, convenience. This language all sounds very professional, so I can imagine your audience is someone professional like a counselor. Okay, moving right along. So in Lincoln's House Divided speech, Lincoln writes with an audience in mind. He definitely does so. Lincoln uses very professional language. He uses a lot of inclusive language. So we know that he's writing for an audience who he wants to appeal to. He says, Mr. President and gentlemen of the convention. So again, that's very formal language. He poses a problem in the first paragraph, and he is using words like where, whither, what, and how to show that there's something that needs to be done, along with the word we being used repeatedly. So again, he's using that inclusive language to show that he wants to build some kind of trust with his audience. He uses language like avowed object, confident promise, constantly augmented. This language again sounds very formal and likely not for just anybody, but it's to a select group of professional people. So as you write your House Divided speech or your House Divided inspired speech, I do want you to consider your audience. Depending on who you are writing your speech to will change the tone that your speech takes on. You're going to use more formal language for a more formal audience. For example, if your speech is to me or your classmates or to the principal or to the whole school community. If your speech is to someone who you think is going to be in opposition or against your views, you might take on a very logical tone. If you see in the excerpt from Lincoln's speech in front of us, he still takes on a very logical tone as he says in the fifth year and using those sequential text structure words since a policy was initiated. He's very logical in how he presents his case that this country can no longer remain divided over the issue of slavery. So you might be saying, well, how do I write for an audience? So some questions to ask yourself. How do I think my audience will respond to this information? If you are writing to someone who shares the same feelings as you, and that is your audience, you might use very inclusive language. You might also use language that is more passionate and emotion-based because you know that your audience will sympathize with you. If you know that your audience is someone who might disagree with you, then you might use very logical language, for example, very professional and formal language. What details and examples can I include that will appeal to my audience? If your audience is a group of students, then you're going to use language that is common to you and your peers. If your audience is maybe a group of teachers, then you are going to use very professional language. And you're going to use concrete, specific examples in all cases. What prior knowledge does my audience have on this topic? Please do not take for granted that your audience knows everything about this topic that you do. If we go back to Lincoln's speech, he reminds his audience that it's been a few years, it's been 5 years since anything formal has been done about this issue of slavery. Do you need to remind your audience of where you've been or where we've been as a people regarding your issue? Right? Do you need to recall past events in order to bring your audience up to speed? Think about what your audience truly knows about your topic coming into it. Maybe they need to be informed and you have to lay down some facts. Maybe they need to be reminded, right? What additional information, if any, should I provide? Do you need to provide statistics? Do you need to provide a personal example to really drive your point home? Okay, so just a few notes on the vocabulary used on this slide. Appeal means to make interested or be attractive to. So you definitely want to increase the buy-in from your audience. You want them to care about your issue. So how are you going to do that? Okay, prior knowledge simply means knowledge that is known beforehand. And definitely feel free to pause this and take notes on this slide as you start or continue to draft your House Divided speech. One final note. Okay, so now that you've identified an audience for your writing, make sure you have a purpose for your writing. The purpose is the reason why you're writing. Your purpose should be clearly stated in the beginning of your speech. So when you know who you're writing to and why you're writing, that will make your speech more effective. Okay, so I hope that you feel in a position to start drafting. At any point, you can replay this video as needed. You can check in quietly with a peer, but you do need to start drafting your speech today if you have not already done so. If you have started drafting, make sure it's clear who you are writing to. And it should not be just, I'm writing to anyone who will listen. No, 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 no. You want to be very strategic in how you do this. And because it is a speech, clearly address your audience. To so-and-so, dear so-and-so, right? Use a header to address your audience. Okay, thanks guys.